Okay, so what I'm going to be talking about is really some embarrassing stuff that's really going to expose Jordan Peterson. Um, so essentially, I actually covered a story back in the summer where he filed a big ass lawsuit where he wanted, I think, $1.5 million in damages um, against a university, L'Oreal University, I believe who it was, and saying that basically, like, they defamed him and they were libelous and stuff. And so he's supposed to be the face of free speech. He's the guy who's been railing against the pronoun thing, and he likes that, he's complimented uh the US having very strong free speech laws, which is a hilarious irony that we'll get to later. Actually, it's pretty fucking funny how ironic that statement will be, and I'll get to that later on. But here's the thing: we now have another one of these stories that has just surfaced, and we're gonna read through this because it's super interesting because it exposes Jordan Peterson for the fucking fraud, supposed free speech warrior fraud that he is. The FSW, I just created a whole new term, that he supposedly is. He's supposedly the guy who's fighting for free speech, but clearly that is not the case. So here's this article from The Cut. Now, actually, before I get into that, I want to explain something. So the person who we're gonna be talking about, who wrote this book and is calling Jordan Peterson a misogynist, may or may not be correct. I'm not making any sort of a judgment call on whether or not said person is correct. I want to make that very clear because I definitely see a lot of these sort of SJW feminist tendencies in her writing. So I'm not making a judgment call on whether or not, she is correct on her things that she says about Jordan Peterson. I'm more talking, and this is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the hypocrisy on the part of Peterson, where he claims to be this free speech warrior, this FSW, and he is clearly not acting in support of free speech. So, this article from The Cut says, but Peterson's affection for unbounded linguistic territory only goes so far, it seems. In June, he threatened to sue Down Girl author and Cornell University assistant professor Kate Mann for defamation after she criticized his book 12 Rules for Life, and more generally called his work misogynistic in an interview with Vox. Peterson previously filed a lawsuit against a university whose faculty members, in a closed-door meeting, argued that showing his videos in a classroom created an unsafe environment for students. In letters to Mann, Cornell, and Vox, Peterson's lawyer, Howard Levitt, demanded that all three parties, quote, immediately retract all of Professor Mann's defamatory statements, have them immediately removed from the internet, and issue an apology in the same forum to Mr. Peterson. Otherwise, our client will take all steps necessary to protect his professional reputation, including but not limited to initiating legal proceedings against all of you for damages. And it goes on, it says, among the statements Levitt objected to, Mann's contention that Peterson's book included, quote, some really eyebrow-raising, authoritarian-sounding, and even cruel things, as well as her observation that, quote, it doesn't seem accidental that Peterson's skepticism about objective facts arises when it's conveniently anti-feminist. See, that's where I start to, so I kind of say, like, okay, this content doesn't seem to be all that good, but that's not really relevant to what we're talking about. It goes on to say, the lawyer and his client were equally unhappy with this line. I also suspect that for many of Peterson's readers, the sexism on display above is one tool among many to make forceful, domineering moves that are typical of misogyny. Again, a lot of shit that I don't know I agree with, but again, it's irrelevant to the topic. So, I looked at the letter, and I'm going to read you guys this letter. This is the letter that was written by Jordan Peterson's lawyer, Howard Levitt. Now, here is what this says. It says, Dear Professor Mann, Professor Pierre Boom, Mr. Illing, and Vox Media. It says, libel notice pursuant to Section 5.1 of the Libel and Slander Act, RSO 1990, CL12. It says this letter will serve as a notice of actions pursuant to Section 5.1 of the Libel and Slander Act, RSO 1990, CL12, regarding the following libelous statements made by Professor Mann on the website Vox.com in respect of Mr. Jordan Peterson. On June 6, 2018, the following libelous statements by Professor Mann were published on the website below. It says, A, quote, I also think the way Peterson cherry-picked a few more dignified-sounding sentences from the diary of one of the Columbine killers, Eric Harris, was downright dishonest. So it's like, how is that going to be proven to be libelous in a court of law? How is a judge going to make a judgment call, no pun intended, make a judgment call on whether or not he was being dishonest in the way that he cherry-picked the, few more dignified sounding sentences from the diary of one of the Columbine killers? How the fuck is a judge going to determine whether that's true? This is not something that's clean cut in actually being libelous. This is getting to a point where you're literally regulating people's speech. You're literally trying to prevent people from writing things in their articles. And this list is a complete shit show. The next quote is, I also suspect that for many of Peterson's readers, the sexism on display above is one too among many to make forceful, domineering moves that are typical of misogyny. So, how is a judge going to determine, whether or not what he's saying is sexism, and whether or not that they're domineering moves that are typical of misogyny? Like, what the fuck? Are you kidding me? What kind of a world are we getting to? Seriously. Where you're just going to sue people because they say shit that you don't agree with. And then your bitch ass is going to be like, oh, we need free speech, man. Kermit the Frog preaching about free speech, which is important as fuck. And this fuckface is a complete fraud. He's a complete liar. Here's the next one. Quote, he said that subsequently in the New York Times piece, I believe, in response to the point that school shooters are often sexually, romantically, and socially frustrated young men, this suggestion is classic straight-up misogyny. Again, that is her opinion. That is her opinion that you are being misogynistic. That is her opinion. Why are you trying to regulate people's opinions? What the fuck? You can't do that. That's her opinion. I don't even know if I agree with it because a lot of this shit just sounds like feminist nonsense. But, what the fuck is wrong with you? You can't just regulate what people say about you. That is, not only is it unethical from a standpoint of in a vacuum, but it's also unethical because you're being a fraud. You're being a two-faced bitch. That's what you're being. Two-Face from Batman? That's you. You're two-faced. Actually, I don't know if Two-Face from Batman would work, but you get the point. The next one. This is, this one actually not. It says, Peterson measures himself by the size of his celebrity, the idea of winning or dominating others as an end in itself. How the fuck is a judge going to determine whether or not that's libelous? This is an opinion, not something where it's like something that happened that she's directly claiming that directly didn't happen. This is an analysis and an opinion of a piece of writing. So how the fuck are you going to regulate someone's opinion on your writing? This is some next level like fascist dictatorship shit. Because you're talking about, oh, I'm going to file a lawsuit anytime you say something. That's not my Jordan Peterson impression, by the way. That's a dumbass impression. Impression of dumbass. How are you going to be like, just someone says some shit you don't like, and then you're just going to sue them for libel? Do you have any idea how unethical that is? Do you have any idea how cowardly that is? You're such a little bitch that you have to sue someone because they hurt your feelings? You don't agree with them, you little bitch? What the fuck is wrong with you? You fucking Kermit the Frog piece of shit. What the fuck is wrong with you? Are you stupid? These statements are all opinions. Look at this one. It says, Peterson says some really eyebrow-raising, authoritarian-sounding, and even cruel things. How the fuck are you going to say that's defamation? That is her opinion of what you said. How is a judge going to determine whether or not you said some really eyebrow, and there's no doubt that the shit that fucking Jordan Peterson says is eyebrow raising. That, a judge should be able to figure that one out, but he can't because there's no objective way to look at that. Authoritarian sounding? How do you objectively determine as a judge whether or not everything you said? And even cruel things. How do you determine that? These are opinions that are so loose and fluid and volatile. How the fuck, I repeat, how the fuck are you supposed to know whether or not they fit this, line of reasoning? The next one. Maybe Peterson's client was effectively undermined or even gassed by her therapist. Gaslit by her therapist. Oh man, that's not even that's like a what if question. That's not even making a claim. That's like a claim maybe. That's making a claim that says maybe. And then the last one says, it doesn't seem accidental that his skepticism about objective facts arises when it's conveniently anti-feminist. Oh my goodness, dude. How on planet Earth is a judge supposed to decide if this is libelous or not? Now it goes on, and those are the statements. Again, I want to repeat. All of those statements are opinions, and the idea that someone's opinion is something that you disagree with, so you can just sue them for libel and get it taken down because you disagree with them, you are not only ethically shitty, you are on top of that a hypocrite and a fraud, and on top of all of that, you're a bitch. That's what you are, because you're not even trying to fight back. You're just like, I'm gonna take you to court and make you take that shit down. What the fuck? That's such a bitch move. That's in the I'm gonna call him a commentator. I don't know what the fuck you want to call him. He's just a bunch of other shit. You know, in that sort of world, you are supposed to. It's the free exchange of ideas. You know, it's really cringy saying that, but of course, Dave Rubin, because of Dave Rubin. But you can't do that, dude. You are being the ultimate Kermit the Frog little bitch, man. It's insane. But here's what it ends off with. It says, please immediately retract all of Professor Mann's defamatory statements, have them immediately removed from the internet, and issue an apology in the same form to Mr. Peterson. Otherwise, our client will take all steps necessary to protect his professional reputation, including but not limited to initiating legal proceedings against all of you for damages, including punitive damages based upon the international reach and permanent circulation of internet publication. If legal proceedings are initiated, the action will be against Vox Media, Professor Mann, and Mr. Illing, I think that's what it is, as well as Cornell University, which is vicariously liable for Professor Mann's defamatory statements. As the Supreme Court of Canada has made clear, liability can be imputed to employers due to damages caused by their employees and or officers. See John Doe versus Bennett. That's funny, by the way. John Doe is actually like that's the name of a guy who's part of a landmark Supreme Court case in Canada. That's hilarious. Just want to point that out real quick. But here's what I'm going to say. Jordan Peterson, you're a bitch. You're a bitch. You're being a pussy bitch right now. That's what you're being. Okay? You can't just sue somebody for libel because you disagree with what they said. These shits are all opinions. What's the best example you could think of legit defamation? What was done to Jesse Ventura by Chris Kyle was clear, clean-cut, straight-up defamation. You make a claim that something occurred, that a specific act occurred, that he punched him in the face, when that did not happen. That is a direct, straight-up lie. Saying that some things that Peterson say are eyebrow-raising, authoritarian-sounding, and even cruel things, that is not a defamatory statement. That's an opinion, you stupid fuck. So, you're ethically shitty, you're a hypocrite and a fraud, and you're just a bitch. But I want to add this in too. Here's the ultimate irony, man. I can't believe this irony exists, man. This fuckface has the gall to have this level of fucking irony. He praises the United States for their strong free speech laws. And what is Jordan Peterson doing? He's not going to sue him in the U.S. courts. He's going to sue him in Canada. What? So you're going to sue them in a country that has weaker free speech laws than the U.S., despite you praising the U.S.'s free speech laws. That is unbelievable. And the article itself actually stated that a lot of times the people will threaten to actually sue in other nations because they have more lax free speech laws than they do in the U.S. Now, in the U.S., it is really fucking hard to prove something like libel or slander. It is insanely difficult to actually be able to do that. And so because of that, what do a lot of them do? They actually threaten to sue in different nations because it's frankly, quite frankly, it is easier to do so in other nations. So, conclusion, Jordan Peterson is unethical, he's a hypocrite and a fraud, and on top of all of that, he's a little bitch. That's what it is. He's a fraud. And someone needs to call him out on this too. If you're going to one of his shitty ass events, call him out on it, man. Call him out. You can't just fucking sue people for libel when they say shit that you disagree with. Some of the things that Jordan Peterson say are eyebrow-raising, authoritarian sounding, and downright cruel. How is that a defamatory statement, you fuckface?